when everyone defines our lives and everything we do we're alive. I know we'll be alright, cause we're here.
Hello, Markee Dragon, also known as Marcus Eikenberry in real life, and I have a question today from James. And James, basically, he says he's thinking of selling game trading cards, specifically World of Warcraft game cards, and not game codes, game cards. The card game, and you know, they made a card game if you didn't know. And some of those cards have codes in them that the codes equal different things inside of World of Warcraft, the video game. And he says that he was wondering if it was worth buying the booster boxes, which have 24 packs, and gambling on getting loot cards to sell. Let's see here. You know, would it be worth his time? And because, like the Spectral Tiger, he says is worth about $600. And he says, is there an industry on selling these trading cards, and should he invest in the small business idea? Well, I can tell you this, that you're not the only one to think of this. And now the good news is, it is not a violation of the terms of service of World of Warcraft to sell the game code cards. Those are not at all a problem. So you don't have to worry about that. But the actuality is that a lot of other people have thought of this, and in fact a lot of the game shops that sell them are doing exactly this. They will open up a bunch of the packs looking for those good ones, and then they'll sell them on eBay or whatever, and you know, to make a few bucks. Now, they are the most savvy ones about this because they have the most experience with, you know, what people are coming in and asking for, and what people are searching for, you know, what kind of prices the stuff is going for. They're doing this for a living. And so you just starting out, you're already at a disadvantage, because this is not something that this is an industry, like you say. You know, is it an industry? Yes, it is. There's a lot that goes on with that, and it is, I would have to say that it's basically a market that is already pretty well taken. Now, can you get lucky? You know, if you're playing the game yourself. And so here's the idea. The idea is that if you look at this as a secondary thing, so if you're playing the game and you're buying these packs to help build your deck as it is anyway, and you're just selling the extras or whatever. I mean, I have not played the game, so I don't know if there is such a thing as extras, but if there were, then, you know, then it becomes a lot more economical, and it's not so much a thing for making, you know, a living off of, but it might help you support your hobby a bit. And I think that that's probably about as far as you can go with it without going total pro, opening a card shop or a gaming, you know, shop, and tackling it that way. I think that those guys know what they're doing, and I think that like the game shops will probably sell for higher than what it sells for on eBay, and they're able to get a premium because they have the person right in front of them. They get the actual card, whereas if you're selling them on eBay and you're just selling the code, well, then maybe you're not shipping them the card as well. And so anyway, let me though give you an example of something else that's kind of similar. You know, way back when, and maybe this is turning into an entrepreneurial video, way back when, gosh, how old was I? I was probably 15 or 16 when I actually started collecting comic books. Now, honestly, you may find this funny, but I didn't read any of them. I was not interested in reading any of them. I didn't buy them for their content, I bought them for their value. I was making investments, just like what you're talking about with these cards. And so the market back then was really, really hot for people buying comic books as investments. And also the baseball card market was very, very hot back then as well. And this is all part of things that when they're hot, you work with them, and when they're not, you drop them. Well, I eventually dropped this, but so what I did was I said, okay, I'm watching the prices of how these things go, and I watched the, you know, how there's special editions that come out, and then, you know, 6 months later they're worth like 10 times as much as they were to originally buy them. So I got myself a wholesale account with a local wholesaler, and when you bought them wholesale, if I remember correctly, it was about 100 of the comics at a shot. And so basically you'd have to buy a box of 100 of them, and I did that. Now I came across, you know, some older stuff in my travels that I bought when I knew it was a good price that I could resell it. But what I did is I would buy 100 of these, and then I would sit on them for 6 months or a year. Then I would open the box. Then I would go to sell them. And in many cases, I was making 10 times as much money. Now, the problem with that is that you can't scale it up to where you can make a living, because the comic books that would come out from time to time that were really worth something, basically, it wasn't very often. It was maybe every couple of months that, you know, I would see one of those coming down the pipeline, and I'd say, okay, this is going to be something special, you know. And it's like the episode, you know, the comic book where Superman dies, or there was a comic, I believe, where Batman died or something, or I don't even remember all of them. Or Robin's first comic, Batman and Robin, the first one that was dedicated to him and everything. And these were the kind of things that I bought. And so then I would turn around and I made all kinds of money. And I would go to the comic book shows, and I would put just one copy out. Just one. Even though I had 100 in the box back there, I'd put just one copy out. And people would come by and they would buy it. I'd put another copy out. I didn't want to set 100 of them out, because then people would think, oh, it doesn't have as much value. And I was actually placing them at the value of what the book said. You know, you'd get these books every quarter that would tell you the value of the comics. And so that's how I would do it. And then I took it even a step further. So I had money at that point. You know, so at the end of a show, I would have a couple $1,000s, and really I hadn't sold all that many comics, you know, maybe a couple hundred. And so I decided, what about all these people that are looking for all kinds of other comics, you know, the older issues and stuff like that? And so I started going around to the other comic book dealers, or just individuals like me that were selling, that had just rented a table at the comic book show. And I said, how are your sales today? Did you do a good job? You know, did you get what you wanted? And they'd be like, well, I was trying to sell my collection and I haven't gotten as much as I wanted and everything. And I'd be like, well, how many comics do you have left? And everything. And they'd say, well, I have 1,000 comics here still. And I'd start looking through them and everything, and I'd say, well, I tell you what, I'll make you a deal. How about I pay you $100 a box, and they'd be like 250 in a box and everything. And so I would get, you know, 1,000 comics for $400. And so then what I'd turn around and do is I would come back to the next show, and I would have them all priced up, and some of them were worth less than $1. Some of them were worth $10, $20. And for probably the first hour or so, I'd let people go through it, and they'd pick out what they wanted, and they'd pay the price on there. And then I put up this big sign. And this big sign said, every comic that's on the tables, $1. I had these racks that I had behind me that I displayed the really, really high-end stuff, and that's where I'd put my ones that I bought for, you know, in the wholesale. I'd put just one copy up there. And you know, so those were all prices marked, but everything on the tables was $1. And then I would keep lowering that. And so what happens when I put up the signs, it would cause a frenzy. Everybody was coming through and they were seeing $5 and $10 comics and they were buying them for $1. They would also buy some of them that were worth $1 or worth less than $1 to complete their collections because they had already gotten a good deal on these other comics. And so it became a volume game for me because I'm selling a $10 comic for $1, but in actuality, I paid about 25 cents for it. So then I would make it so that they were 75 cents each, and then I would get 50 cents each. And the frenzy would happen each time. People would come back and go through because stuff then became a better value. And then I would make it. I'd have these boxes that would fit about 250 comics, if I remember correctly. If you stood them on end, you could really compress them down and you could fit in. And so I'd sell it for like $150 a box. And then people would come in, they'd fill up a whole box. And then at the end of the show, it was $100 a box. So as many as you could fill in the box, you took it. And I would sell out of almost everything. And then I'd have all this money, and I'd go around to all the other sellers, and I'd buy them out. Well, funny thing that happened, and this is an absolute true story. I was not meeting the model of how people did, you know, their sales of everything. And so I wasn't, you know, the model is that you would, you know, buy for maybe half the price of the value, and then you would resell it and you would double your money. Well, I was totally ignoring that sales model, and I was doing this big volume game thing, and I was totally selling out, and I was coming away with, I don't know, this whole method probably netted me 5 times my money. And then I would turn around and I'd buy out everybody else. And I kid you not, one time we had to rent a truck because I bought so many comics that I couldn't get them all home in my station wagon. And so I had to go rent a truck. It was pretty funny. And so we did that. And I remember my landlord getting all hinky about how many comics I had in my apartment. He was worried that the floor was going to experience too much weight, and in actuality, I had like 4 tons of comic books in my living room, dining room. And he was right; it was too much weight for the floor. It didn't crack or nothing. Don't worry about that. But what happened is that I kept doing this, and it kept getting larger and larger and larger, and it ended up to where I had 7 or 8 tables, and I had all of these comic books left out there, and I was really making really good money off of this now, and I got blackballed. And I got blackballed. I got refused buying tables in Seattle, in Oregon, you know, in Seattle, Washington. They had comic book shows, Tacoma specifically, in Everett. They had some comic book shows. They had them here in Portland, Oregon. They had them in Eugene. And you know, so I would do this circuit here of all of these, and I got blackballed in all of them because I didn't meet the spirit of the event. I was making a killing, and it could only be done by causing this frenzy and everything, and so I had to be there where everybody wanted it, but it didn't meet the model of, they said I wasn't fair to everybody else. And in fact, I did this again in a computer store. I did the exact same thing, and you know, it really became an issue of you're not fair. And so it was quite interesting how that worked out, and how I got blackballed for being successful and everything, but you have to fit within the standards. Anyway, so I just thought of that because, you know, what you're talking about with the game cards, maybe you could do something like that. Maybe you could go to shows and you could do something of that nature. Because the shows, you have a lot of audience coming by, and you have a lot of opportunity to buy stuff at a low price, and then you can sell higher. I don't know, maybe it can work. These days, I mean, I eventually gave it up. I sold all of them to, well, actually I ended up a comic book store in Everett. I provided them every single comic book for their entire store. And then they just paid me based on, you know, half of what each one sold for, something like that. And then I finally gave that up and I sold them all to some guy in Wyoming. And I remember the UPS bill was hundreds of dollars to send all of them because there were so many of them. But I think I sold it through Craigslist or something like that. I don't know. I don't even remember how I got in touch with them. In fact, yeah, I guess we did have internet at that time, but it was just brand new, So anyway, so hope you enjoyed that story. That was a good flashback at something that I had done that I'd forgotten about, and a good example of not thinking inside the box where everybody else is, thinking on your own, doing it your way. So anyway, I know that doesn't exactly answer your question, but I hope that gives you some ideas. I'm Markee Dragon. Take care. If you made it this far in the video, you may as well subscribe. That's what I want you to do. You obviously liked it well enough to watch it this far. So look at this. This is Frostmourne. This is a Runes of Magic sword. This Runes of Magic sword is one that we're giving away as second prize to one of you subscribers, just for being subscribed. That's all you have to do. Subscribe and accept our messages, or watch our videos where we draw for prizes. So this one is it's a really nice sword. It's signed by some of the American staff for Runes of Magic. And then there's the big boy here. I got it on my shoulder because it's so darn heavy. You know, this sucker is 16 pounds. Look at this. So it's a two-handed sword here, man. This is a beautiful sword. And we're giving this away when we hit 42,500 subscribers. It could be you. So just subscribe. That's all you have to do. We'll do videos selecting the winners, and we'll send you a message in YouTube as long as you accept it. Just make sure you accept messages from us. To do that, put us on your contact list. And you just add Markee Dragon to your contact list, and then you'll be able to get messages from us, and you'll have 30 days to get back to us when we send you a message. Or if we can't message you, you'll just be on video, and you just gotta watch the video and then contact us. So anyway, if you made it this far, you really should subscribe, and I would appreciate it. So anyway,